Hi folks, it's Andy and welcome to this week's Kendo rant. We're going old school today. I do not have space in my studio. I've had a massive delivery and I've had to just put a load of stuff in the studio, so I haven't been able to get to the studio to film Kendo rant today, so I'm sat at my desk doing it old school style, 2018 style. So my hair's sort of sticking up as well, that's weird. Anyway, I've got plenty of questions for us to get to today, but before I do, you know the most important thing I've got to say today is join the Kendo Show Early Access group. That's where lots of these questions are from, and shop at KendoStar.com because that's what keeps this channel alive, okay? KendoStar.com is my Kendo equipment website. It's all Kendo equipment specifically designed and curated by myself, specifically for the international Kendo community. It's amazing, fantastic, wonderful gear. Not only does it pay for this channel, but it's like the best gear ever. And if you don't believe me, check out our reviews because they back me up, okay? So go and shop at KendoStar.com. Okay, so first question. I've got a question for the Kendo Rant series regarding two different styles of tezashi stitching. I've seen a couple of different styles, one with only a small stitch exposed on the outside, while the inside has a longer stitch. The other style had both inside and outside stitches as small dots. What are the benefits and drawbacks of each? I noticed the first one was on kode, while the second was on my men. Does it lend itself to easier manufacturing due to the curve of the kode, or is it merely a price point thing? So, yeah, I don't know why you would have it different on the men and on the kode. Probably it's just different craftsmen that made each part. So there are two main types of stitching. There are other types as well, but the two main types are called tenzashi and nagazashi, okay? I'm going to draw a diagram for you, okay? So, right, super sophisticated diagram. We've got two, these are cross sections of Bogu futons, okay? So here's what nagazashi looks like. It kind of goes like this. Like this, and like that. Okay, so the thread goes like that. Okay, it doesn't, but I'm super simplifying it, right? But it's kind of like that, okay? Whereas tenzashi goes like, let me get this right. I don't want this to, yeah, okay, so it goes like this. I've kind of messed up a bit, but it goes more like that. Okay, it goes more like that. Okay, you see that? So that's why on the, actually the nagazashi is wrong. Sorry, I've drawn the diagram a bit wrong. So let's start that one again. The nagazashi one is more like this. It's more like that, actually. It's more like that. Okay, so that's why on the top side of the futon you get a little dot stitch still, but on the underside you get a longer stitch, and the other one is like this, tenzashi. Okay, let me get some tezashi bogu so you can see the difference. Wait with me a second. Oof, okay, I'm back. So I've got a couple of tezashi mens here that I'd line about the studio, in the studio. So this one here, all right, can you see that? You see the stitches there, and this is the underside of it, yeah? They're like long stitches. This is the nagazashi style, all right? The top side of the men are just little dots, yeah? But the underside is the kind of nagazashi style, like that, okay? And then this type are just dots like that, yeah? This is Gunomizashi as well, so that's why they're in this sort of uneven pattern. But they're just dots. Okay, so that's the tenzashi style. And the difference is actually the tenzashi tends to be a little bit more expensive and a little bit harder to produce, but it's also harder to do very well. So there's not many craftsmen actually that can do it. So the problem with tezashi bogu is that if they don't do it right, it has to be the thread tension, it's done by hand, right? Has to be perfectly even throughout the whole futon, and there's thousands of stitches in it. So it's if the thread tension that's done by hand, of course, is slightly different, even for a couple of stitches, what you get is when you get that, you see how it's like that? Yeah, it doesn't like make a smooth, like the little bumps, they're not smooth, like some are bigger than others, and it looks kind of goofy. So that's kind of one of the problems. So the 10s actually, it tends to be a bit more expensive, but it does give a slightly softer feel. And of course it's a little bit more durable because you've only got a dot, a stitch on the outside. Having said that, in Japan, lots of people prefer the nagasashi. They kind of like the feel of it because it's got a little bit more rigidity to it. So yeah, that's the differences. It is unusual that you would have. We use tenzashi, by the way, for the kanzetsu for the most part. It is unusual though that the men and the kote would be different unless you got them from different places. So next one, this question came from a recent Zoom keiko I was in. Up to this point, I've pretty much done what I thought was the standard chudan. What I meant by this is left fist, one fist in front of the navel. I think that's too high, to be honest. I don't know. Whether I'm holding a bokuto or shinai. Typically, I hold the bokuto tip more at throat height and the shinai tip more at the solar plexus height. The right hand position is dictated by the tsukai length. So far, so good. If there's any changes in the left hand position, it's due to wearing the door and how many donuts I had. Anyhow, at this recent keiko, when we transitioned to bokuto from shinai, the meeting leader said that for him, the right hand position stays where it stays, whether he's holding a bokuto or a shinai, and the left hand is what moves forward because the bokuto has a shorter handle. I'm not really interested in who's right or wrong. What I'm curious about is what are your points of consideration and what were you taught when you take kamae with a bokuto versus shinai? So what you're talking about, right? I don't know if we can get it on camera, some really small area, right? But the position of your left hand when you hold the shinai, it's a kid's shinai, by the way. So when you hold the shinai, you're saying a fist away from your navel, but for me that's too high. I hold the shinai lower than my navel. It's a good sort of a few inches below my navel. My navel's here, right? So if I hold it like that, my hands would be too high. It's much lower. Now, what you're talking about is when you hold a shinai, if we can get an actual shinai. So you're just looking at my chest now, but if I was to hold the shinai, that would be in this sort of position. But when you hold a bokuto, the person in your meeting kept the right hand there and held the left hand further away from their body because the bokuto has a shorter handle. Whereas what you've been doing up to now is moving the right hand back and leaving the left hand in the same position. So what we're talking about is whether we keep the right hand in the same position or left hand in the same position. Here's my take on this: this is massively, not massively, I'm exaggerating. All right, but you're kind of overthinking this a bit too much. All right, I've never thought about it this much. When I got out of bokuto and did kamae and did sort of a bit of suburi and sort of kata with bokuto to sort of think about this. Yeah, I hold the bokuto a little bit further away from my body than I do with the shinai, probably because of the length of it and the length of its handle. Though it's not something I've given massive thought to. I think the important point is to do what feels comfortable to you. So if you feel more comfortable and make a more natural kamae with the left hand close to you, then do it that way. There's no specific ruling that says where your left hand absolutely has to be. I even think, this fist away from your navel, I think that's a misnomer. I don't think that's accurate. For most people, I think that will be too high. Yeah, just relax, hold the bokuto how you feel comfortable, make the nice chudan, and I'm sure you're absolutely fine. Next one, hi Andy, what's the name of the lacquer used on the men to cover the rawhide component that the mengane is attached to? That's called the menbuchi, the bit you're talking about. And would KendoStar consider selling it to allow for light touch-ups at home? I ask, being quite tall, mine gets chipped and damaged very quickly. So the stuff that they mainly use is a synthetic urushi. Urushi is a Japan lacquer, but they use a synthetic version for the most part that's made of cashew nut oil. So in Japan, it's just called cashew lacquer. You might be able to get a variant in a hardware store in your country. And yeah, traditionally it would have been genuine urushi, but there's two problems with it. One, it's very, very toxic. And two, to properly paint with genuine urushi on the men buchi takes like it takes weeks just to paint it, all right? Because you have to leave it to dry for like 4 or 5 days, and it needs like 7 or 8 coats for it to be strong enough to be repeatedly struck with a Shinae. That's why bamboo doll takes so long to make. So there are some companies that still use genuine urushi, and they boast about using genuine urushi, but generally they only do like 2 or 3 coats and then it chips off straight away. So that's the experience I've had anyway. So for me, the synthetic stuff's a lot better because it's non-toxic, and it doesn't like make your Bogu take 2 months longer than it should. Not 2 months, but like you know what I'm saying. Now, in terms of whether we would sell that lacquer, we don't sell that lacquer, and the reason for that is, one, we're not allowed to import it from Japan. They're not allowed to ship it out. It's a flammable material. You can't just put that in the post, and that will be the same problem as us trying to send it out to you. However, there's a few things that you can use instead. What you can do is you can use like any sort of gloss, oil-based lacquer or paint will do the job. What I've actually used is like I don't know if you can get the I don't know if you can get it in different countries, but let me get a pot of what I use. Oof, I'm back. Okay, so what I generally use is, I don't have a label on this, so I'm not going to mention the brand, but it's a gloss black enamel paint. Use it for like painting like little model aeroplanes and stuff, I think. It doesn't wash off with water though, so if you use this, I get a thin brush. You need a synthetic brush. Don't use a brush that's got real animal hair or sable. You want a brush that's like got just nylon, like a thin one you get from an art shop. Use that, and then you need like white spirits or terps or something to wash the brush afterwards. It won't wash off with water. That's a gloss enamel paint. That's what I use for mine, because it's easy to get hold of. The other thing you can use is gloss metal paint, like stuff that you'd paint on your gates outside or something like that, but you've got to be careful not to get the hammered finish. You need the smooth gloss finish. But there's plenty of stuff you can get down the hardware store that will do the job just as well. Some people colour it in with markers, but that looks rubbish, so don't do that. Next one, which KendoStar Bogu set do you use the most at practice, and which one do you love the most? Which KendoStar Bogu do I love the most? That's like asking me which of my kids I love the most. I love them all. They're all amazing. I do have a particular thing for my Vanguard Praetor. I have to say, I do love my Vanguard Praetor, but I also love my my Vanguard Prime, and I love my Kaise, and I love my Shinobu Wraith, and I love my original Vanguard. I love all of my Bogu equally. What I use the most in practice though is it depends. I cycle them, so I actually use a lot of them very frequently. Now, I don't use the Praetor and the Kaise that much, but I do, because they're just beautiful and really nice Bogu sets. I save them for like nice occasions, like Shiais, or for like seminars and stuff. But like when I'm at squad training, or if I do my weekly practice, I tend to use like the original Vanguard. I use that, or I use my Vanguard Prime. And recently I've been using my Shinobu Wraith as well, because it's just a great set. It's really comfortable. It looks awesome, and it's very durable too. Next one, I have 2 questions. If a hakama is too big for me, I have to tie it way over my navel. Does it make sense to ask a tailor to shorten it, or should I give it to someone and get a new one? I'm afraid a tailor without experience could ruin it completely. And the second question, can you or someone from the group recommend podcasts about Kendo in Japanese or English? So, about the hakama, first off, it should be just like the obi bit. For me, I actually put that over my navel, so I don't put it under my navel. You don't wear the hakama where you wear your jeans or your trousers, your pants, whatever you call it. Yeah, they should be a little bit higher. So for me, I actually wear the hakama covering my navel. But if it's still too long for you, I would be a bit wary about getting a tailor to look at it. I'd probably just give it to someone else and get myself a new one from KendoStar. The next question about the podcasts. Well, the Kendo show, Kendo Rant's a really good one. I know it's not like an official podcast, but you could just like look away from the screen. And it's kind of a podcast. Nah, but I know that Imafuji Sensei does a great one as well, and that's in English. And yeah, there's loads of really cool stuff on there. So yeah, unless there's like recommendations for the Bogu shops, don't listen to that bit. But yeah, otherwise I'm not sure if there's many Japanese ones, to be honest. So yeah. Next one, in the Netflix documentary The Last Dance, Michael Jordan talked about how much work he'd put in to change his body from a baseball body to a basketball body when he went back to basketball. He practiced both sports at an elite level and he looked super fit playing both. So I guess just being super fit is not bad, but what exactly is a Kendall body? What are the muscles that you need to work on more than others, and what exercises can actually be detrimental to getting your Kendall body? Is it also possible that overworking or overdeveloping some of the Kendo muscles can become detrimental to performance and improvement? This really is not my area of speciality. I don't, especially your last question, I don't know. And I don't know if there's enough research on that sort of thing anyway. However, in terms of like for Kendo, for me, like, I don't know what the perfect Kendall body looks like, but what I would say is that all of the top players tend to have sort of similar qualities in terms of the way their body's made. And it tends to be things like they seem to have very strong calf muscles, very strong leg muscles, and very strong forearm muscles. And I think that the main sort of fitness training that elite Kendall practitioners tend to do is general fitness stuff that you know, trains their entire body, and lots of running for cardio. I don't think there's like specific necessary things that they would do otherwise. In terms of stuff that would be detrimental, I think if you made yourself too heavy, I think that could be detrimental in terms of, you know, like muscle mass. You know, if you had massive pecs or something, which would be great, but like, you know, if you had a proper big bodybuilder, Mr. Universe physique, that could potentially be detrimental. But it's about how you use those muscles at the same time. So not necessarily. I don't know. I haven't tried it and I'm not an expert. So what's the longest time you sat in Cesar without moving? Like without moving from Cesar? Probably like 25 to 30 minutes. And that was excruciating, to be honest. I'm quite good at sitting in Cesar, actually. And I lived in Japan for almost 10 years, so had to sit in Cesar quite a lot. There's restaurants you have to sit in Cesar in. But probably about half an hour is like probably the top end of what. Though having said that, I don't remember the last time I sat in Cesar because of this whole like lockdown thing. So maybe I could only do like 3 or 4 minutes now. Next, is it wrong to want to do Kendo competitively as well? I do enjoy Kendo, but I like the idea of putting everything you've learned to the test and play at a really high level of Kendo with a team. Is there any way to do that, and how should you go about it? Thank you. So no, it's not wrong at all to want to do Kendo competitively. In fact, I would argue that it's wrong not to want to do Kendo competitively. Competitive Kendo, Shinae, the concept of Shinae, which is competitive Kendo, is an essential pillar in the study of Kendo. It is necessary to improve for the reasons that you said, in that it puts you to the test. And that, you know, the idea of playing for a team is also super important. So no, it's not wrong. Quite the contrary. It's wrong not to do it. About how you go about it, ask your teacher. Ask your teacher, say, I really like to enter competition at some point. How do I go about doing that? Because that varies from club, you know, from different dojos, different federations and stuff. So I can't really say how you do that, but there are plenty of tournaments that happen. So I'm sure there's ways for you to enter them. Next one, Handy. I've been wondering, what is your Kendo Shoshin? Original heart. How and why did you start Kendo? What was it like when you first started? Has your Kendo changed a lot from the Shoshin through your journey of practicing Kendo? Did it influence your Kendo at all? That is a deep question. Probably requires a video of its own. But I started Kendo because a friend of mine that did Kendo, since quit Kendo, gave me a Shinae as a gift, just because I saw it in his house, thought it was cool. I'd always been into like sword fighting, swords and stuff like that. I've always been a bit of a geek sort of person. I've said before that I like fantasy literature and stuff, and not so much literature, I'm not good at reading, but like movies and stuff, Lord of the Rings, that sort of things. I love Star Wars. I love that sort of sci-fi stuff as well. Love Warhammer is a big thing for me. I like that as well, Warhammer 40,000, stuff like that. And I've always liked that sort of thing. And a friend of mine gave me a Shinae because I thought it was dead cool. I went home, I looked up for Kendo in my area, and there just happened to be a club just opening the following week in my area, being like about 20 miles away from my house. I went along, started it, and I really loved it. I thought it was great. And it consumed me, all right? It was everything in my life at that point. And that was magnified by about 1,000,000% when 6 months later or so, the World Championships happened in Glasgow. And I went there as a spectator, and I just saw like what world Kendo looked like, and I knew I had to be part of it. So yeah, my Kendo has changed a lot. And through my journey of practicing Kendo, of course it has. I hit that thing that I think lots of us hit when we get to around third dan, which I was thinking about this the other day. I think third, fourth dan, and this is dependent on the individual. It's different for different people, but I think it's common amongst third dans. Between second, third, fourth dan is peak Kendo arrogance, where you think it's that stage where you know a bit, but you don't realize how much you don't know, if you know what I mean. And that was certainly me, because like when I was third dan, I was like captain of the British team, and I was like running a dojo, and I thought I was dead good. Like I thought I was really, really good. I was winning championships in the UK and in France and stuff. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm good at this now. And then I went to Japan, and then I realized that I was like nothing. I was like, and that really changed a lot for me. Yeah, and it keeps changing, you know, it keeps changing. When I started teaching kids over there, like probably like 4 years ago now, I started teaching kids at a kids dojo, and I was fifth dan at that point, and I was considered a sensei, a teacher at the dojo. That put me on a whole different path again. So I'll probably do a video sometime, maybe like my Kendo story or something like that, like YouTubers do. Right, I'm not drawing it though. Next one. Probably from Shibori, the Tsuru on my Shinae always ends up to the left of the center. Do you have any tips on combating this issue? So yeah, I know exactly what you mean, because it's a lot like this Shinae here, how it's twisted off to the side there. It's something one of my daughters has the same problem of, and it's from gripping the Shinae a bit too hard with your right hand, all right? And it's not at this point that you're gripping it. It's like there's a point where you're actually twisting it like this. Okay, there's a point where you're twisting like this, and it could be when you're actually applying tenuchi, like you say at the point they say shibori. I don't really like that term shibori, because I don't think that shibori means wringing out a towel, and I don't think that's very accurate description, but that's just me. But it comes mainly from a little bit too much tension in the right hand, in the fingers, at some point along the way. So probably that's where you want to look. Next one, it could be when you're lifting the Shinae, actually, thinking about it, for Furikaburi. I don't know. I recently attended an online keiko run by sensei I've never practiced before. He recommended a way of doing Zenshin Kotai Shomen Tsubiri. Zenshin Kotai Shomen is when you do straight main cut forward and backwards, which is new to me and different from what I've seen so far. If I correctly understood, he suggested that to make the strike more dynamic, the right foot should move forward first, and after the Shinae should go up and down simultaneously with the move of the left foot. I believe that usually the sequence is being described in a slightly different way. The Shinae goes up, right foot moves forward, Shinae goes down simultaneously with the left foot. I understand that in both cases, we want to achieve a single move with them rather than a sequence of separate moves. Feet actually move together, as you explained in your great Tsubiri Along 2 video. Thank you. I know that often there is more than one way of doing things right in Kendo, but in your opinion, what approach would be better for beginners like myself? Question 2 is, from a few weeks, I feel a slight pain in my lower ab muscles. Initially, I thought that it was caused by strength training, but now I'm pretty sure that it's Kendo related, probably Fumikomi Tsubiri. Do you know what mistakes may lead to that kind of contusion? P.S. The new official guide for Kendall book ordered on KendoStar is on its way to me. I look forward to it. I hope I get it tomorrow. Please not forget to mention that KendoStar is the best place for buying Kendo stuff. Oh, I won't forget to mention that. So question 1. So there's lots of different ways of doing men's suburi, okay? So there's the first type that I talked about in 0 to shodan and in the first suburi video, which is as you lift, you push the right foot out, and as you cut, you bring the left foot up. That's type 1. Type 2 is you raise the Shinae and then you launch the feet forward and cut simultaneously with the feet. Men, this way. Okay, that's type 2. And type 3 is what the teacher in this video, the video you saw, is explaining, which is where you move the foot right first and then cut. Okay, I would say that number 3 is the most advanced version. And it's perfectly valid, and it's an excellent way of doing suburi as well. And if you're capable of doing it comfortably, well, not comfortably, because I don't find it comfortable. I don't think it's something you'll ever be comfortable with. But if you're able to do it without making too much of a mess of it, then by all means practice that way, because it has deeper implications on the future kendo that you'll do as well. There's a concept in kendo called semeashi, and when you're actually facing off with an opponent, it's actually your feet that start to move first. Your foot starts to move first, and that's what takes the initiative, and that's what gets you going first. Okay, so you start semi with your foot before your shinai, and it's a lot like that. And also by moving the foot first and then swinging and hitting on the left foot, in suburi, it forces you to swing the shinai very quickly, and I think that's a good thing. So I actually think that that's a good method of practicing suburi as well. There's 3 main ways there that I've described doing it, and I think all of them are perfectly valid. As you're a beginner, I think you should do whichever type feels the most comfortable for you for the time being, but be prepared to change it later. In fact, if you wanted to, what you could do is you could do all 3 different types. There wouldn't be anything wrong with that either. You could do 10, 15, 20, 50, 100 of each type if you wanted to. And I think that would be a perfectly fine thing to do. About number 2, about the pain in your lower ab muscles, you're asking the wrong person. I can't give you sort of medical advice on here. I have no idea what on earth could be causing that. It's not unfathomable that it's fumikomi suburi because that involves a lunge. But what I recommend is you rest until it's healed before you do any sort of thing that might cause it again. And about the official guide for Kendo, I know loads of people have ordered that now since we put it back live. I put a statement out on Facebook, all right? And I'm going to state it again here. I should have said this probably at the start of the video, but I'm saying it here. The books, especially that book, but some of the others as well, the suburi items, particularly the furisen and the short suburi shinai, they're taking a little bit longer to ship than usual, all right? There's a massive demand for them, which I'm so grateful for because I really need that demand right now, especially during this whole pandemic situation. But we're getting orders faster than we can get stock at the minute, all right? So I'm doing my very best, but you might experience a slight delay on those specific items, all right? So do forgive us for that, all right? I'm sorry. Next one. As a Bogu retailer, how important are accurate Bogu measurements? Would it be okay if I added a centimetre to my measurements just in case I got it wrong? Right. The accurate measurements are very important, particularly you need to, this measurement around the chin, this is the most important one for the men, all right? This one's important too, and this one is also important. So do your best to get them as accurate as possible. But out of all of them, this one is the most important one. For the kote, this one and this one, you definitely need those. This one's less important. It's important, but not as important as these ones, all right? Do not add anything to it. Do not add anything to it. Measure it with a soft tape, not a metal one, a soft one like this one, like this, yeah? Not a metal one. Try and get one that's in centimeters, not in inches, not just in inches. Try not to do it in inches and then convert it. It might not be accurate. Just try and measure it in centimeters. And measure it again and measure it once again. If you're unsure, if you get 3 different measurements from doing that, get someone to help you. If you're still struggling, take some photos of you measuring it, send them to me, mail@KendoStar.com, and we'll have a look and we'll let you know, all right? But don't add anything to the measurements because I'll guarantee that you'll end up with a Bogu that doesn't fit. Okay, so don't add anything to it. Even if you add like the men pad options and stuff, people often ask me, if I add the men pad, do I need to add an extra centimetre or something? No, we'll do it on our side, all right? So don't worry about that. Next one, are there Bogu makers you've looked up to or who have mentored you? No, not really. I wouldn't say there was many that really mentored me. The thing about me and my Bogu career is that, like, when I first started in the industry, I obviously worked for a big company in Japan that did it, and I didn't get any training. Like, if I had a question, I had to go and find out the answer myself, and I didn't speak good Japanese at the time, but it was a great way of helping me learn Japanese. But I did learn a lot of Japanese, and I did manage to learn a lot. I learned an awful lot because I knew from the beginning when I was doing this, I wasn't going to just be someone that sat on the end of a computer answering emails and just giving like, what do you call it? Like flashcard answers, just like pre-prepared answers. And I wasn't going to be the person that, let me put it this way. I set out from the beginning to become a professional in this industry, and that's what I believe I have become, to the point where, before I left the last company I was in, I was training other Japanese staff members to deal with domestic customers. So having said that, it's like, I wanted to be a professional. I didn't want to be the person that didn't know the answer to any question. If someone asked me a question about a Bogu, and that's why on these live streams that I do live streams on the early access group, and people fire questions at me, bam, and I've got the answer. I don't need to go and look at it and know, because I know what I'm talking about. Yeah, that's one thing in my life I've got definite confidence of, is that I know what I'm doing in my work. That is the product of my own effort, frankly. I wouldn't say there was somebody that tutored me or mentored me in that way. That system just didn't exist, especially for a foreign guy working over there. You got to remember, I joined a company that didn't want me to join it. Like, I'm not mentioning company names and stuff, but the first company I worked at, they told me right off the bat, they didn't want to hire me because I was a foreigner, but they owed my sensei a favor, so they would. So, that's a different thing. But in terms of other I look up to lots of makers, all of the successful makers. Of course, I look to them. I don't know if I look up to them, but I respect them a lot. Of course I do, and I look at their products. I think some of them have got fantastic products, and I think some of them have got less inspired products, shall we say. But it's a good question, but it's not one I've ever really thought about. I'm not a craftsman. If I was a craftsman, I'm sure there was somebody that I could turn to and say, well, this craftsman taught me. But it isn't like that for me. I'm not a craftsman. I don't do the physical work. But I do know the industry inside out, back to front. So, but like I say, that's all through my own hard work and effort, to be honest, rather than because somebody taught it me. Next one, and this is the last one. Hi, I have a question regarding Subirito. I was recently gifted one by a senpai of mine, but I'm not quite sure on how to use it properly for training. My sensei said that to do the same things you would with a Shinae, but don't use your wrists as much. I want to know if there's a specific way to use a Subirito and exercises for it. Thank you so much for your time. So, a Subirito is a Subiri Bokken, like this one. Oh, there we go. Like this one, like we sell on KendoStar. Yeah, and how do you use it? You use it the same way as you do a Shinae for Subiri. You don't hit anyone with it ever, but you use it for Subiri in the same way you do with Shinae. However, it's it's quite a lot heavier. So start with the Joge Subiri and maybe Naname Subiri. And then when you do the Shomen Subiri, when you do cuts where you actually stop, which is what I think your senpai is talking about in terms of using your wrists, if that starts to hurt or give you any sort of pain, don't do any more, all right? You need to build up strength All right, that's where you get these muscles from. All right, it's using one of these. That's where I got it from. Yeah, but it takes time. All right, so I started just using it for Joge booty and Naname booty, and then I'd switch to my Shinae, and the Shinae feels super light then. And then you do you do the normal booty with a Shinae. Then as I got more strength, as I got stronger and stronger, my technique improved. I started to do with the normal suburi as well. But if any point it starts to hurt your wrists, starts to hurt your elbows, put it down and just use a normal Shinae. Okay, that's it for today. Thank you for watching. I'm sorry that it was a bit of a low-tech setup today. Like I say, my studio's sort of in chaos at the minute. Don't forget to shop at KendoStar. I'll see you all next time. Thanks for joining me. Bye-bye.